Hello, this is my week 2 video. On this week, we talked about food waste and climate change. Those were our 2 lectures. On food waste, we talked about many multiple things. Pretty much, essentially, what does food waste entitle? How do we fix food waste, and how are we causing food waste? The summary of what we did about climate change would be whether if climate change was over exaggerated, and if a person that doesn't have any credentials of being a climate scientist can have any major opinions on how we act upon climate change. Conclusion of the food waste articles or article. There was concept of the higher income countries, or especially very high income people and developed nations, wasted a lot more food compared to low income people or still developing nations. And then that's a trend that was seen in pretty much in calories, nutrients, and pretty much like emissions. A lot of things are exaggerated within the developed nations. In regards of wasted food, there's also wasted calorie, wasted nutrients that could have been used for people that are starving in many parts of the world. They also created a concept called wasted nutrient days, which essentially is the daily dose of nutrient needs that could have been used for someone else, but was actually wasted within food production. Moving on to the second article we read would be the one that is talking about climate change in general. So essentially this article talked about how this year, or maybe I forgot the date of the article, but then I'll probably put it there, here, or somewhere around here. Right there. So this article talked about how we have peaked in temperature, in a high temperature, pretty much consistently within this year. We've broken new peaks at, I think it was actually 125,000 years in which we've gained, we've peaked in temperature, which is really concerning, considering that that's a lot of our human history. And that's pretty much what the first article talked about. Moving on to the second climate change article. It was from a political scientist called Bjorn Nord. I'll just say Bjorn, but he essentially I would say he's a very skepticistic political scientist talks about how climate change as a whole is overplayed, is over exaggerated. He did bring in some interesting points, as that there's actually been less climate related deaths compared to previous years, and then apparently there's been less hurricanes. I don't know where the data came from, but trusting that he's pulling it from a trustable source, he is saying that there's less hurricanes, less climate deaths, and less which says his argument, saying we don't need to put as much focus or much money into climate change. He has very deep roots in European arrogance, where his stance on climate change is that humans will adapt. His point of views are pretty much economically driven. It was definitely interesting. I would say it was interesting looking at kind of an opposite point of view, where it's we don't need to spend as much money as opposed to urgent matters, you know. My takeaways from this week would be food waste is bad. We can prevent a lot of food waste from bringing containers, buying less food. I mean, there's many ways you can use leftovers. Another takeaway would be that climate change is still a very bad thing. It's still happening. It's not something that we can just not put any effort into. We still got to put a lot of money into it because our future depends on it. A way this kind of affects, this topic kind of affects us as students, would be probably that, honestly, not even students related, but just as a world like sustainability. We're all living the same planet, so if we're able to reduce food waste, we're able to reduce fresh water usage, we were able to reduce the amount of greenhouse gases that will happen after the food waste, and we could potentially use the food to feed other people, which I think is a greater cause. And then I think sure article I read about would be this one right here. It talked about essentially the behaviors, like food waste prevention behaviors linking to each other. In the study, they found that bringing a shopping list, which can prevent food waste from buying excess ingredients which you don't need, is linked to people freezing more food. And then there's also correlation between people having checking their pantries and then going on like meal prepping. But there's also negative correlations between like people meal planning and people freezing food, because it's just the fact that they're making food they're making food as a prep, and there's no need for them to kind of store food or store raw ingredients into their freezer when they plan once a week into a whole meal. Another thing they found would be that people over 65 tend to waste less food than people that are under. They found that people over 65 are typically they have the mindset of just kind of say, if they waste food, it is wasteful. It comes from the mindset of World War II, where they were rationed food